In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
Good morning. Yesterday, we saw how Stephen, along with 6 others, were chosen to wait on tables for widows, to serve widows. Well, they couldn't be chosen unless they were full of wisdom and full of the Holy Spirit. And sure enough, Stephen was. Well, the apostles laid hands on these 7 folks, and the love of God flowed into them. It says that Stephen, he was full of wisdom, full of Holy Spirit, and he moved in grace and power. Because that's what happens when Holy Spirit lives the love of God through you. Well, that power gave rise to many wonders and signs that were performed. Well, the religious leaders didn't like that at all, grabbed him and brought him before the council, and as they accused him, Stephen defended himself. We're going to see that today. We're in Acts chapter 7, and I'm going to not read, but tell you the story starting in verse 1 all the way through verse 53. Stephen is basically telling the story of the history of the children of God, the history of the Israelite people. Well, it starts with Abram and how God made covenant with Abram and changed his name to Abraham, promised that he would have many, many children, even though his wife Sarah was barren. Well, eventually Isaac is born, and out of Isaac comes Jacob. And then out of Jacob comes the 12 families of Israel. Jacob showed favoritism to Joseph, and so his brothers were very jealous of that. And they sold him into slavery. He ends up in Egypt and becomes the Pharaoh's right hand man. And there's this terrible famine. And so he sends some of his sons to go get food from Egypt. Well, he's getting it from his own son, Joseph, but he doesn't know that. And so Joseph eventually reveals himself and invites the family to come live in Egypt. And so they do. And they stay there for a while. But then there's a new Pharaoh, and the new Pharaoh abuses the children of Israel. Well, now the story comes into Moses, who's sent to rescue the children of Israel from their oppressors in Egypt. And the story of Moses, then Moses goes up the hill to eventually get the 10 Commandments. But while he's gone, the children of Israel con Aaron into making a golden calf so that they can worship an idol. And so the children of Israel stay in the wilderness for 40 years. Well, they have a tabernacle so that they can worship God in the tabernacle. The story goes on, and we get to King David, and he wants to build a temple, but God doesn't let David build the temple. Solomon builds the temple. Well, probably if Stephen had stopped there, they would have been okay with him, but he wasn't. He says, God doesn't live in buildings. And then he says this. Verse 51 of Acts chapter 7. You men, Stephen's getting in their face, you who are stiff necked and uncircumcised in the heart and the ears are always, are you listening? Resisting the Holy Spirit. You are doing just as your fathers did. And folks, religious people resist the Holy Spirit even today. Which one of the prophets did your fathers not persecute? They persecuted everybody. They killed those who had previously announced the coming of the righteous one, the coming of Jesus, whose betrayers and murderers you have now become. You who received the law as ordained by angels, and yet you did not keep it. You preach the law and you don't even keep it, but you won't say yes to Holy Spirit and Jesus who came to set you free from the law. Well, God bless you who walks in boldness. See, Stephen was walking very boldly. Why didn't he stop? I think there's 2 reasons. Number one, because he spoke truth. He always wants to speak truth. But the main reason I believe is Holy Spirit was alive on the inside, and it was Holy Spirit that was speaking through Stephen. Well, tomorrow we're going to see how Stephen is a kingdom man and how the kingdom reveals itself to him. I look forward to being with you tomorrow. Come join us. I'll see you then.
Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus.